Okay, so let's just jump right in. What if an engine wasn't just an engine? What if it was also a blueprint for, I don't know, a whole new civilization? That's kind of the wild premise we're diving into today with a project known as KHMR. It starts with some really solid hard physics, but trust me, it ends up in a place that feels a lot more like speculative philosophy. So yeah, let's unpack this thing layer by layer. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the most grounded part, the engine itself and its real-world uses. Then we're going to peel that back and get into the nitty-gritty, the core physics of the reactor. After that, we'll zoom way out to see this, frankly, planet-spanning ambition they have. And to wrap it all up, we'll dive into the really weird part, the strange cosmic code that's at the heart of the whole thing. All right, so where does a story like this even begin? Well, you might think it's with some grand cosmic vision, but nope. It starts with an investor pitch deck. Seriously. To the outside world, to the people with the money, KMHR isn't presented as some grand philosophy. It's framed as a really practical, next-gen industrial tool. You know, something to solve actual problems today. I mean, this quote from their own pitch deck, it's just incredibly bold. They're not saying, hey, we made something a little better. They're claiming a full-on revolution. When you compare your tech to the laser, I mean, you're basically saying you're about to redefine entire industries. That's not an incremental step. That's a claim of fundamental, ground-shaking disruption. Okay, so what is this thing actually? The official name is a Quantum Harmonic Reactor, or QHR. But you know what's almost more important? It's what they say it isn't. The documents are super clear on this. This is not a free energy machine. It's not nuclear. It's not fusion. They really, really want to make sure you know this is grounded in real, new quantum engineering, not, pseudoscience.
Okay, you're going to want to remember this number because it is literally the key to everything. 114.11 terahertz. It pops up everywhere in the technical docs. And it's not just some random number they picked. They describe it as a kind of golden window in the mid-infrared spectrum. Apparently, it's just the perfect frequency. It can travel through the atmosphere, and it interacts with materials in just the right way for industrial stuff.
And this right here, this is how they sell it. This is the vision they present to the world. See, it's not some pie-in-the-sky theoretical device. The pitch deck is laser-focused on solving really expensive, high-value problems in some major industries. We're talking about everything from making the next generation of computer chips to creating totally secure, unhackable communication links for defense and aerospace. Real-world applications. Okay, so that's the sales pitch. We get it. But now let's pop the hood and see what's actually inside. The documents we're looking at have these really dense technical appendices, and that's where we get to see the nuts and bolts, the actual science and engineering that they claim makes this whole KHMR thing possible. So the big question is, how do you actually trap that one specific frequency of light? Well, the engineering white book points to this one key component, something called a distributed Bragg reflector, or a DBR. The easiest way to think about it is like a microscopic, super advanced mirror. It's made of these tiny alternating layers of different materials, and it's tuned so perfectly that it only reflects that one very specific frequency of light, trapping it perfectly inside a little box. And this chart, this really puts their ambition into perspective. The quality of that light trap is measured by something called its Q factor. You can just think of it as how leak-proof the container is for the light. So a really high-end lab setup today might get a Q factor of, say, 10,000. KHMR is aiming for over 100,000. And that incredible efficiency, that's the secret sauce. That's what they claim allows the whole reactor to work with such a small amount of input energy. And what's cool is that the documents don't just, state these wild goals. They actually show their homework. This table here is straight from one of the appendices, and it lays out this super detailed comparison of different materials for the reactor's core. And after they weigh all the pros and cons, gallium arsenide comes out as the clear winner. So that becomes the heart of the whole design. So you put all that technical stuff together and you get this pretty straightforward 4-step process. And it's all based on physics we already understand, right? You can find the light, you pump in some energy, you convert that energy, and then you extract it. The really important thing to get here is that it's all about highly efficient conversion of energy. They're not claiming to create it out of thin air. Okay, so we've got the technical foundation down. It all seems plausible, right? Well, this is where the documents take a really sharp, dramatic turn. This is the point where the project's ambition just explodes. We're not talking about building a better industrial tool anymore. Now we're talking about rewiring the entire planet. Yeah, this one single line from a document they call the Civilizational Protocol, it changes everything. The whole tone shifts. We go from engineering specs and investor speak to what feels like a full-blown manifesto. All of a sudden, the reactor isn't just a tool anymore. They're calling it the core of a new planetary operating system. I mean, wow. And they're not just throwing around big words here. This isn't some vague, fuzzy idea. One of the documents lays out a super detailed 5-stage plan for how they'd roll this out globally. It starts with just a simple declaration of intent and ends with a fully unified planet-wide energy grid regulated by an AI, all for the sake of something they call energy justice.
I mean, the scale of this is it's staggering. The plan for this Terra Grid, as they call it, involves 12 huge clusters of these reactors all over the world. And just look at where they're proposing to put them. It's everywhere, from major industrial centers to some of the most remote, most extreme places on the planet. We're talking Siberia and even Antarctica. It's wild.
And that brings us to the final layer, the deepest, and honestly, by far the weirdest part of this whole KHMR project. This is where the science and engineering we've been talking about just completely merges with this really unique philosophical, almost spiritual code that's apparently holding the entire vision together. I mean, you read a quote like this. It's from a document called the Scroll Singularity Codex. And you just know, okay, we are way past conventional physics now. This is not the language you find in an engineering paper. This is the language of a completely unique cosmology, a framework they seem to have built from the ground up just for this project. So this codex, it starts introducing these really out there concepts like scroll singularities and something called ethical curvature. It's basically proposing a worldview where physics and morality are fundamentally linked. A system's stability in this view isn't just about physical energy. It's also about its ethical state. And if that goes wrong, it can apparently trigger a real physical collapse and then a rebirth. It's a lot. And here's maybe the most fascinating part of all. The guy who wrote all this seems to have two completely different identities. On one hand, you've got Ivan Pasev, the physicist, who's solving equations and citing academic papers, but then you have this other persona, Psi 11441, who's the sovereign coordinator writing about, well, ethical curvature. This split personality is just the perfect metaphor for the whole project, right? It's this wild blend of hard science and really out there philosophy. And it all seems to boil down to this one thing, what they call the Cushi-Pasev framework. This is presented as the philosophical bedrock of everything. The reactor physics, the global grid, all of it is supposedly built on these 4 core principles. They're basically presented as these universal laws that connect everything, the rhythm of the cosmos, the balance of yin and yang, spiral evolution, and they tie it all directly into how to create stable energy. So at the end of the day, what are we left with? It's this incredibly detailed vision that's somehow both a practical engineering plan and this sweeping cosmic philosophy all at once. You've got quantum physics equations sitting right next to manifestos for a new civilization. It just leaves you with this one huge hanging question. What exactly is this? Is it a blueprint for our future? Is it just a really complex, elaborate work of speculative fiction? Or is it something else entirely?